Jai452 here again, going behind the mask, finding out all the secrets from the reality TV show and much, much more of Who Wants to Be a Superhero. Joining me this week is the lovely, the amazing Lamuria. Hi, Lamuria.
Hi.
How are you today?
Brilliant. And you?
Good. I'm doing good, thank you. Even though I'm working with a new headset, guys. So we're just going to jump right in there, and I'm going to ask you, how did you get involved in acting? Because you have a history in acting, from my understanding. So how did you first start there?
How did I start? I was originally a painter and an artist, and I drew a lot, and I traveled the country, and I ended up in Los Angeles. And I was looking, and someone suggested that I become an actor, and I thought that was the most bizarre thing to say to somebody who's a painter. And they said, no, you do a lot of modeling, which I've done on and off for years. They said, well, you should do acting. That's kind of art-like. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what does that entail? Instead of shooting, I think I actually said no, and then somebody said, no, you should really check it out. So I spoke to my dad about it because he lived in Los Angeles for a long time, and he knew an actor by the name of Martin Sheen, whose family's been in acting for, I think, 3-4 generations now. And Martin called me and said, what can I do? How can I help you? And I explained to him what I was doing and where I was going, and he suggested I get into acting class and really learn what the craft was, and if it really was for me, and learn really the art of it. And he gave me a couple of suggestions and a couple of people to talk to. And a couple of years later, when I had done a lot of studying, he actually wrote a recommendation for me to be submit to Juilliard when I tried to get into Juilliard. So I worked a lot at acting, and I did commercials, and those were doing well, and was doing some really good work, but I didn't really get it until I actually auditioned for Juilliard, which I didn't get into, but I had one of the most lovely moments of my life as an actor at my audition for Juilliard. I was doing the Romeo and Juliet, a monologue, which was not really my thing, but I was doing it, and I did it in a contemporary way, so it was all, it was all very organic, and it was real, and for the first time in my life, as an actor, I really started to understand what being in the moment was, and I was Juliet in that moment, and having all of those feelings, and it was so amazing that when I stopped the audition, or when I was finished, they stood there, and I just said, thank you, and I went running out into Lincoln Center and literally jumped on top of something and screamed. I was so excited and happy, and it was one of the most amazing feelings to create something so organic, so real, from absolutely nothing other than my imagination and this what felt like a 3-dimensional life. And I did it, and I it was like this incredible, I would say high is not the right word, but release of accomplishment, and then standing there afterwards in Lincoln Center screaming my head off the top of my lungs in the middle of New York. I think maybe I was like 17 or something, and just being out there on my own in New York and feeling completely free. I didn't get into Juilliard, but I got to have that moment. And I could have gone to Juilliard and never had that moment, but I got it.
Do you think that moment of finishing your monologue for Juliet was something that really inspired / pushed you to become an actor?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It helped me stay in it and persevere and work my butt off to try to achieve more of those moments, which turned out to be not as easy as I thought. But yeah, that moment of knowing that I could achieve it, yeah, oh my gosh, it's what kept me for years of not getting the parts I wanted or almost getting those great parts. And yeah, it fed me. It fed my soul.
Now, when you look back on that particular memory of auditioning at Juilliard and doing your monologue as Juliet, is there anything that you would change about that?
No. I mean, I think there's things I could have changed to get into Juilliard, and I would have got in. but then I wouldn't have gotten that moment. And that's one of the most cherished moments of my career in my life.
Awesome.
So yeah, I didn't get Juilliard, but I got that.
So after you did your audition for Juilliard, you did a few movies, and one of them was Belly Fruit. What was it like on the set of that movie? Because that is the first movie that IMDb has you in. You know, like, so the IMDb recognizes that as your first kind of like your breakout role kind of thing.
The biggest one I've done today, because I've done lots of independents, and that was this one I've done. We shot that in Boyle Heights, which is East LA, and that was a period of time where East LA was still really hardcore. And I really worked on, although I had an accent, more of like a typical California Latino accent when I was younger, because I've always read a lot, and my family doesn't speak that way. I don't get to speak that way, so I had to go and spend a lot of time in Boyle Heights learning the accent, but also going to a culture that was, although I'm Latina, is very different than my own, and learning about that. So going there and being, because we shot on location, that was really interesting. I'm really doing all of this work about being from somewhere where I'm not organically from, because I'm a really big believer in doing the homework and really researching stuff and really getting that stuff into my soul. And being there, it was a trip, because I would be in these apartment buildings that would just be deteriorating. And when I was a kid, we'd be in places like that, but they were more out in the fields, because I grew up with farm workers. But sitting and seeing that, and what really, really brought the whole thing into focus was really a trip. I came to work one day, and I'm on set in this crazy building, this really trippy neighborhood. It was pretty intense, and we needed security guards. We also needed a baby, because there's babies in the movie. And they went upstairs, and there was a teenage girl, probably younger than I was, and I was a teenage girl, maybe 15, living with her boyfriend. And they asked her if we could use her baby. And she's like, yeah, no problem. And I went up to meet the baby, and I said, well, do you want to come with us? We're going to shoot this. And she was like, no, you could just take the baby. And it was mind-blowing how what a different life experience this person was having, that this baby would have. And we did the movie, but it was the reality of what we were doing really came into focus, because we were on location. And people that were really in the same experience that the movie was portraying were all around us, and really seeing this 15-year-old girl having her 4-week-old baby and go, no, you can just take the baby. She cries. Here's the bottle. Here's the diaper bag. Oh my! Thank you for my 2 hours of freedom. It was trippy. It was like, wow. You're just gonna. Do you want to see the scene? And you want to see the safety? She just didn't care. She just needed a minute. Now, I understand. I probably understand that a little bit better now, but it was a little bit weird, and it was a different life than I knew. And really portraying that really helped me. But it was, oh man, to be one of the movies when I started doing bigger movies and have that experience again was really, really a trip.
Now, Belly Fruit is one of the movies that you did that you ended up having to do like post-production stuff with, where you would go out into schools and talk to various people. And I do remember you saying that people couldn't understand how you spoke one way on the movie, but a completely different way when you were talking to them. So what was that experience like?
Well, I think it was really interesting, because there were so many people that were really, really moved, because from my portrayal of something, it was very kind of organic, or at least what they told me was very organic or true to their experience in life and similar experiences. And a lot of girls, when they came out and actually met me, because I'm not that character, were very offended, because they felt so as though I was sharing their experience of life on the screen. They were kind of offended that I wasn't just like them. That was a hard part. But then the rest of them were like, wait a minute, you can talk different, you can do it like this. I said, yeah, you could just go to school, or you could do this, or you could figure this out, or you could do all these different things. And I mean, I think one of the things I shared was I would call up different countries And I would get my recorder, my little recorder, this is back in the day, and I'd call countries. I would listen to people talk and get their accents and then learn. But I just would tell them about all the things ways to learn how to do different accents or different things in life and get different educations. And that was a trip. People really, really thought that was like, hey, wait a minute, you are like me, I'm like you, and I can do what you're doing, which was really, really one of the best outcomes that could have happened. And funny enough, the guy who played my boyfriend in that movie, his name is Michael Pena, and he's now starring in Chips this month. Is it this month? Chips is coming out?
Ooh.
Yeah, he does movies like that. So that was a funny little thing.
To be fair, I will say right now, I don't know when this interview will air. So Michael might have been in Chips, or it could have happened and it's aired, and we could have possibly spoken about it on the TV drop. But possible. We film these interviews way in advance of things, people. You should know that.
No, I think it's coming out in a couple months. But he also was in Crash, which got an Oscar 2 years ago.
Ooh. Just on the front of people being kind of slightly upset that you weren't exactly the way they were, do you think that is the mark of a good actor, being able to fool the intended audience into making them believe that they are what they like the person is seeing on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's about fooling as opposed to trying to be as honest in that space that you create. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think it, to me, it's not fooling. It's creating something and being really, really true to it and being really honest about my connection to it. And the more honest I can be, and the more true I can be, hopefully, that truthfulness and that openness and that honesty to that life experience that I'm portraying speaks to somebody else's truth. And yes, because I've had that. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Okay. Now, my next question for you is, you'd obviously done a lot more movies in between when you started on the show and when you did Belly Fruit. Mm-hmm. What role was your most favourite? Like what was the role that you really got into during that time?
Oh gosh.
Like, was there...
My favorite vacation, I have different ones. Uh-huh. My favorite vacation, but not necessarily my favorite role, was shooting a movie in the Yucatan jungle, mm-hmm. in the Mayan jungle, and jumping into cenotes and running through jungle. That was definitely my favorite location. My favorite movie, my favorite role. So I directed and wrote a short film somewhere between there. It was called, what was it called? It was called Yesterday's Child, and it was a dual personality, and I think I really enjoyed that because I got to have some freedom in that. So there's some fun. There's fun when I'm able to do comedy. I definitely have a. Well, no, that wasn't comedy. That was actually really incredibly depressing. I think as writer actors tend to make really depressing movies, but that was a good one. But it's also fun to do comedy because it's not my bag. Mm-hmm. But man, you can make a couple thousand people laugh. Mm-hmm. It's kind of I see the draw. I've only had it happen a couple times in my life to have people just laugh off their butts off of something I said. I'm not as organically good at it as other people, but dude, yeah.
Now, you mentioned playing like a dual role. Is that something that a lot of actors jump at the chance to do? Like, for instance, when I think dual role, I tend to think of I don't know whether you'll have ever seen this television program, but it was written by Joss Whedon, and it starred Eliza Dushku, Dollhouse.
Dollhouse. No, I think isn't it based on the book?
I don't know. The premise of the show is Eliza Dushku's character Echo is essentially a doll that you can imprint a personality onto and then take it away again.
There's a series, there's an English series that does the same thing, with the dolls, the creepy dolls. Oh, what's it called? What is it called?
Is it Westworld? Is it Westworld?
What's it called?
Westworld, by chance?
No. It's Gee, Many Christmas. It's oh God, I love this show. It's got Frankenstein. It's got the American Werewolf. It's based in London. It's based in 1800s. And there's creepy dolls in season 2. It's gonna kill. Oh no! It's called after those the dime store murder mysteries they had.
Penny Dreadful.
Yes, I love that thing. Oh, you combined all the different things into one story, and everybody's a bunch of bloody maniacs. But do you remember the doll thing in that? That was some creepy. Dude, did you see it?
No, but I do have a friend who has watched Penny Dreadful all the way through, and he loves it, and he loves the fact that I think now don't quote me on this, but DC Comics might be bringing out the actual comic book. There is a comic book coming out. It's either DC Comics or Dark Horse Comics that are going to be the parent company. So be on the lookout for that, or it might already be in stores, so go check it out. The general idea is that most actors, I always get the feeling that they jump at a chance to play one very central character, but then also that central character could have these personality traits kind of thing, like X, Y, and Z. And it's not always going to be, oh, well, I played a rock-climbing, kick-ass, superhero in episode 1, so I'm going to be bringing that back in episode 3, It's going to be a different personality each time. Is that something that, as an actor, you jump at, and say, oh, I want to play this this very central character, but also have all of these personality traits,
Oh yeah. I mean, think for me, because you get to try out these different muscles or these different. You get to show your range. I think as an actor, sometimes you're very pigeonholed, and being able to show a range or show the range, but also enjoy each part of different elements of a human being and their madness or their minutia or whatever drives them, and breaking down human personality to departmentalize itself so much that it fragments into different total personalities. Obviously, I've done a little bit of homework on sometimes how fragmented personalities work, but oh, dude, it's delicious. It is delicious.
Is there any personality trait that you love performing in particular? Is there one that just sits out above the rest?
Something I think we've talked about before, but I had a hard time playing cruel, being a human being. But I think if I would go back to that, I think I could probably enjoy it a little bit more. I think there's watching so many amazing different shows and reading some different books and really giving myself permission to just enjoy these.
It's so true what they say. Villains have much more fun.
Oh, dude.
Much more fun.
Yes.
So we're going to take one quick little break, guys, and we'll be right back. So, okay. So, yeah, villains definitely have more fun. What in particular, because you have mentioned before that you played a villain-ish type character or a mean character. What in particular about that performance did you not like? Because there is a story behind that. I know that for a fact.
I don't like being cruel. I have a really, really hard time being hurtful. And I think it's funny, we've talked about just, as friends, we've talked about different things and about I don't know, for me personally, I think hurting people's feelings is really, really hard for me, especially knowingly doing it. But I think I think the more I've thought about it, and as long as it's not real, it would be really interesting to give myself permission to not enjoy inflicting pain, because I don't, that would be very hard for me to really think about, but to find rationale in evil or in those things. And I think that would be really interesting and a really great place to explore. And to, I think the villains get to use their voices in different ways. And I think that, for many years I played the young ingenue that just did all this and I think that would be really like, it'd be juicy and fun. Yeah, it'd be great. Now, but then I didn't think I could separate where my heart was to where my character was much.
As a cosplayer, I find it sometimes very difficult to differentiate where, like, I begin and my cosplay ends, kind of thing, or where I ended my cosplay begins. And the characters that I've cosplayed as are initially villains, so, but they're the type of villains that are not necessarily going to be mean to people just for the sake of it. And they're comic book based as well, so that's the fun side of that. So you get to be like over exaggerated and be like, oh well, blah 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 blah, and yada yada. You mentioned that the type of villain that you've played could be close to a real person.
Yeah.
If you had the option to play a villain again, what type of villain would you want to play? Would you want to play the close to a real person type of villain again, or would you want to do like an overly exaggerated kind of almost comic book cartoony type villain?
Well, I think at the end of the day, because I love story, I think the best story, I'd want the best to be involved in the best story making. But I think, why do I have to choose? Why can't I do I'd love to be a comic book superhero, just because I think there's something I loved in the freedom of those exaggerated choices. But I'd also really love to explore the justification for cruelty or for evil, not because to be cruel, but because most people don't think that they're the bad guy. Most people truly believe that they're in the right. And I think that is such an interesting element to explore, that, oh my God, and of course you can do that in big for superheroes, or you can do that in just small, maybe some horrible, creepy old somebody, or some young, creepy old something, or I welcome the idea to explore it either way, but with a big fabulous costume and maybe some fantastic hair and some spandex, oh yeah. Admittedly, that would be kind of fun.
I think that's what I like. When I'm watching television shows that are very specific, like they're superhero based or, whatever, I'm always watching the villains in particular, and I'm kind of saying, right, okay, this is what that actor is doing. Obviously they've delved, it feels like 9 times out of 10 the actor who's playing the villain has really delved into the character, has really read up and said, right, this is their motivations, this is how I can portray that, this is how I can put my own spin on that. And it's always really fun to see what they put up onto the screen as well. I think my favourite incarnation of that is in the TV show Gotham. There's a boy who's playing, I say a boy, he's probably just a few years younger than me, who is playing a character called Jerome Valeska, which is basically the kind of future Joker kind of character, and he does it so amazingly well. Like, he's taken what Cesar Romero, Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and Jared Leto have done in the past, as well as Mark Hamill, and kind of meshed it all together for his performance. And it comes across so insanely great, you know. And I love seeing that kind of thing. I just love it to bits. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's so juicy as well. It's so juicy as well, and I think it's so great when actors and when actors in general go that extra mile to add something to the performance, you know. So let's talk a little bit about a choreographed scene that we were talking about when we were just like chatting about. You spoke about a choreographed scene where you had to punch somebody once. You were in a taxi cab for one of the movies?
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because that was quite an exciting time for you, because you mentioned to me that was one of the more fun things that you got to do as an actor. But you were also kind of apprehensive about it, because you didn't want to lose control of your limbs and end up clocking the person double in the face.
Yeah. It was my first movie. It was my first movie I ever did. And of course, being a Latin girl, I'm going to play a gangbanger. And I got this role, and it was a scene, the first scene we were shooting. Mm-hmm. It was really, I did all my homework. I was really, I was really thinking about, my character and all this stuff. And I was worried that I wouldn't be able to let go of it and really just participate in the moment. And we're sitting in the back of the car, and there was the producer was driving. The director was the director was driving. The cinematographer had the big camera in the front seat, and there were three of us in the back seat. It was myself, a mutual friend character, and then my enemy character, Ben. And I'm supposed to kind of go after her a little bit. And we talked about how we were going to do it. Was I going to punch her? How I could really worry about her safety and not really hurt her, because I wanted to make sure I didn't do that. But I also wanted to make sure that I was really truthful to the moment and truthful to this character that I built. And so I'm looking out the window, and we're driving and talking, and then we kind of just started driving for a while. And as I'm watching the landscape, I'm just letting it kind of feed me and let go of who I am as a person, and let this character kind of slip in as I'm watching the real neighborhood go by. And I'm feeling the shoes, because I made sure I put like this pebble in my shoe that was killing me. I really got it in there, and I just started to just take deep breaths and get more and more agitated. And then the other character started, saying the things that she was saying. And it was hitting me. I remember it really landing, and I just slipped into the reality, the super reality of the moment, or the kind of floating reality you have in a really great scene. And she's just, I remember her saying all of these horrible things to me, and just taking it so deeply personally as this character. And finally, the moment that she just crosses a line verbally, I snap, and I jump over the other girl. And in the footage, I think later on, you can kind of see it, but my hair is so everywhere because I was so pissed. And I landed a punch or two on her, not on purpose as myself, but the character did. It landed some nice facial strikes, and that's something I'm really proud of. But it was one of those moments where it's just so real that we, as these three actors, were creating this reality together, and we made it happen. And then afterwards, I apologized profusely, and the other actress was like, "No, it was real. It was all so real. It felt like we were there. It was really happening." And it was those things that we all, although there was some violence, more than should have been, it was so cool for all of us in that car. Created this reality. The director, the cinematographer, and these three actors in the back seat, and we did it. We made it happen. And that being my first scene in the movie, yeah. I mean, I think in those ways, I've been really lucky as an actor that I've had these moments that are just like, yeah, oh yeah. This is
awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned reality there, and that easily eases us into reality TV. Mm-hmm. Now, you were involved in a little show called Who Wants to Be a Superhero?
I was.
Season 1. So why don't you take us through how you got involved with that? Like, what was the story behind you getting involved there? Like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
did you hear about the show, basically?
So I got a phone call. I'm an actor and a writer, and a reader and a lover of fantasy and sci-fi and superheroes and all these things. But I got a phone call from my cousin. He said, "Oh my God, Stan Lee's doing this movie or this show, and you get to create your own superhero and you get to be on the show and be in costume, and it's a reality show, but you get to do a lot of writing. But it's reality, and you got to live in the house as a superhero." And my response was, what? And he said, "No, you have to be on the show." I was like, "Fuck you." No, I worked really hard for this career. No, fuck you. And I'm like, "I'm not doing reality television." And he said, "Well, you have to do it." And I said, "No, fuck you." And he said, "Well, I'm dying." And I think I might have said "fuck you" one more time. He said, "No, I'm actually dying. I'm getting chemo, and I'm having this conversation with you." And I apologized for swearing, I think, and said, "Okay, well, what's it about?" And he told me that the premise of the show, and that if you would get to create this character and be this character in the show with a bunch of other superheroes. And reality really wasn't what it is today, but also I think from being a really serious actor, there was a lot of stigma about it. So I didn't want to do it, but I love the idea of creating, and I love the idea of writing something. So we started talking about it and creating this character and coming up with all these really cool myths that we liked, and I started writing. And I would call him while he was on, getting chemo, and I would tell him about what I was writing. He has a better memory than I do, so he'd be like, "No, that trait comes from this character in this comic book of this, whether it was written in there." And I'd be like, "Okay, fine, I'll take that out." And and he really kind of kept me on course. But I fell in love with this character that I created, and these stories that I was writing. And by the time it came to creating a costume and meeting everybody, I wasn't as weirded out about a reality show or about living life as a superhero, because I'd fallen in love with this thing that I'd created. The great thing is that when I did get into the house, he did go into remission. Yay. So he's good. Yeah, it's really good. He's had this 2 times now. He's had stage 4 cancer and has beaten it. So he in truth, Ricardo Mondragon Avila, my cousin, is really the bigger superhero than I am, because he's really survived a lot and worked his butt off. But he also got me to do a reality show based on superheroes and write a character that I so in love with.
So, you mentioned the costume there. Now, obviously you guys eventually got a costume when on the show. But when you first made the costume that you were in when it came to the televised interview and such likes, or audition I should say, how difficult was that for you to make? Did you go through a lot of planning, a lot of sketches, a lot of different versions?
Of my own costume?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot going and finding the fabric, and to this day, because I still make a lot of things, I love going down to the garment district in Los Angeles and just finding different fabrics and materials and what speaks to you, what doesn't. And this gold lame fabric that I ended up buying by the yard really just spoke to me, and going and finding little facets of things, because I'd sketched some things out, had some ideas. But for me, in creating anything, whether it's clothing or textiles, I love just going into the garment district and touching everything, and really having that be a part of my process in creating a piece of material, or a costume, or any kind of textile. So that was really awesome. And then it went really wrong. It didn't fit right, and I think I originally made like a tank top, and it just sat really ugly. And I went and found a bustier and ended up sewing this gold lame to this bustier, and kind of creating this and realizing that it didn't quite cover my top region, and I have all this fabric, and then I didn't realize it, but a couple weeks later, I'm running down the street in stiletto heels, and realizing that what I constructed was not quite holding me in as well as I would have thought. So I you for double-sided tape. As anybody that does superhero wearing or cosplaying, double-sided tape is, the wonder thing of us all.
Double-sided tape. And guys, just so you know, I have 1 roll, 2 roll, and the extra double strength.
Oh yes, these girls have seen those. that kind of tape a lot. Yes.
Sorry.
No, I love that stuff. That stuff has kept me. Oh my God, I've been to award shows and found a piece of fabric that I love. I did this once, and I think I only what wore was like this little what was it, like this little plastic tube I sewed out of spandex, and then I tucked this beautiful antique Chinese silk into it, and I pinned it, but I didn't use that many pins. Man, that double-sided tape, and I was going to an award show, and I didn't have people have assistants that can tuck things in. I think I might have actually wore the roll as my bracelet, and just been like, look at me, I'm fabulous, and then when nobody was looking, a little piece of tape and stuff it somewhere else and plug and.
That is a great tip for anybody who requires anything like that. Just wear it as a bracelet. Nobody will know.
They won't. And backstage, everybody will love you. You will be the person to go to for everything.
So, you mentioned that you put together this costume. Now, when you went along for the initial interview, obviously you're under NDA for a lot of different stuff there, and we won't pry to that. Even though the NDA is well and truly over, we can pry into it. But you went along, well, you obviously got through to the next round, which would be the televised audition. So what was that like? Did you meet a lot of what would be initially your housemates that day, or was there only a handful of people you met that day?
I only met one that day, I think. Steel Chambers, I met him that day.
Mm-hmm.
But, during the whole series of different... Oh, sorry, my phone's gone a bit bananas. Who did I meet? So I met... Oh, no, I don't even know who that is! Jesus! Oh, Siri is dangerous! She gets you! Oh, God. Siri, IA... it's going to come and get us. I was the Terminator movies for me. I remember seeing them go, oh my God! And then you're like, what is it? All these scientists are now like, no, artificial intelligence is fabulous. And I'm like, no! Did you not see every single Terminator movie like 4 times? Anyway, sorry to go off on that rant.
At least don't
get me wrong, a little artificial intelligence is nice. Just
at
keep
least,
it off the internet, babe.
I will tell you this, my dear, so that it kind of keeps you secure in that thought. I'm the one that normally goes off on a rant. Like, anybody who knows me knows that if it's not a Thursday, and like I told you why a Thursday is not a good day to talk to me, they will worry that I will come in with a rant. Like yesterday, before we started our Dragonland session, I spent 25 minutes ranting about how, like, the big family size bag of chips that you would get, like that says 25% more. I spent 25 minutes ranting on how much that is like the biggest load of bullcrap ever. I'm saying it is not like somebody was trying to tell me, oh, but they add more chips, and I'm like, they add 5% more chips. That's not 25%. That is like so much less than 25%. It's just, and I try to explain to them that it is just a bigger bag. So when you're paying like $5 to $6 more than what you would pay for an ordinary bag, you're literally just paying for the fact that it's a bigger bag.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like,
Okay.
oh, but it's not like that. And I'm like, yes! So you're not the only one who rants about weird stuff.
Oh,
But you met only one person on the
in the auditions, and a lot of it, I didn't really see a ton of other people during part of a lot of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But then the first day, of course.
Now, when you went for that audition, were you aware of the cameras being around? Did they tell you guys we're going to be filming you, or was it all just kind of?
There was big signs that said, because they have to be big signs that say that we're going to be filming you. There are cameras around. I really thought the cameras were paying a lot of attention to. I don't think I got a lot of attention in the bigger rooms, which was fine. I think I was writing or reading, because that's me. I've got the book. Or if somebody's telling a story, I'm like, oh, what happened at the end? I'm that girl. I like to read it, or I'm drawing something, or as opposed to like trying to be seen or trying to be. Although that's what happens in the end. I just so love the process that maybe I probably was sewing. I was sewing or taping a lot, writing, reading pulling the big book out of the bag and being like, this is great. Does anybody have any coffee?
Now, when you were at the live audition, was there anybody that you met that you thought, oh, I'm going to see that, like, they're going to be in the house, that didn't end up in the house?
Yeah, I don't really remember. I'm trying to remember who. I don't remember who, but I remember seeing just so many really beautiful costumes and so much really hard work. So I was surprised I wasn't surprised it got into the house, because I think everybody that got in the house was really, I can't say too much about most of them. I really enjoyed the majority of them. But there were just, there's just so much, I don't know how they chose. There was just so much beautiful hard work that those people put into those costumes. You're kind of bummed that not everybody gets to do it.
Okay. So you guys, you got picked to go into the house, and you were in there with a bunch of different people. Mm-hmm. Was there anyone in particular that you really gravitated towards on that first day? Like, you kind of like, oh, I really clicked with this person kind of thing?
Yeah, oh yeah. Tobias, I think, who was the first person to leave and he left that day, was a big bummer. I still love, his name was Levity on the show. Mm-hmm. I still talk to him on occasion. I thought he was going to be like the bee's knees. I was really grateful to find somebody that I really clicked with. Mm-hmm. I really liked Darren Passarella, who did really well. Nitro. I'm still a fan of. He's done very, very well after the show. That's been really nice to watch. So yeah, a couple, but I was bummed that Levity they had to leave, which was like, oh my god, wait, no, rewind. But no, that didn't happen, and we had to be there.
This is going to be an interesting question. Was there anyone in particular that you didn't get on with?
Oh, there is. So, and I think depending on time, I don't know. Let me see if we are in time. I think. Okay. Oh shoot! I got to go in 3 minutes. Okay. So I want to tell you this about time. So I didn't get along with Fat Mama, and I think that was pretty evident in the show, because I think that she really understood what reality shows were about, and she really, really knew how to push my buttons. Because I've worked on a lot of shows, television, and films. You walk on a set, you do your job, and you're very respectful, and you do your job. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's not how reality works. And she really, really nailed me at periods of time that I really wasn't ready to be on the offensive. And I think I got a little more riled than I probably should have or would have. I mean, I can get riled in general life, but I'm generally at work pretty, you try to be very professional. And of course, reality doesn't work that way. And we didn't get any physical altercations, but I might have asked her to kiss my natural brown ass 1 or 2 times. And of course that phrase has followed me for ages now, and people saying to me, or hearing people say, you need to kiss my natural brown ass. or things about my act. So that's kind of followed me, which is the funnier part, and to bring levity to a situation that I was genuinely really upset about. I was really, she really got me. She really knew how to just nail me, and not until the last 2-3 years have I actually really got along with her. Because sometimes I still see people at events. And it's really taken that long for me to go, oh, I shouldn't take that personally, because it took me, I was pissed. I was pissed for a really long time. You don't treat another person like that. But that's how reality worked, and she really understood the medium in a way I really didn't.
Do you think she did that specifically for you to get a rise out of you, or?
Oh, she was going to get rises out of everybody. She was, she was pushed, except for Matt Atherton, who ended up winning the show. She's always had a soft spot in her heart for him. I think we all did, or all do. So she was, I think, always a little bit lighter with him in those direct kind of assaults that she would get up to. So in that thing, I think it was a little different, but he won the show because I think that we all truly believed in his superhero power.
As time went on, did you start to twig to that, or was that something that you didn't twig until after?
No, she actually talked to after kind of getting it, she actually tried to talk us into all doing things, to start things, I think there were a couple times I'm like, all right, well, I could do this. But the moment it would get kind of mean or something, I would be like, what? No, wait a minute. Like, no, we should do it like this. And it's like, I can't. It's like, oh, we'll make good TV. And it's like, no, why don't you just write a good fucking story, mate? Sorry.
That's quite okay.
I love story. I love good books and good comic books. So I think for me, I did get it a little bit and understood what she was going for. And I think that's, after the days when I started to get really tired and she was so pro into doing her thing and doing her reality take, which is, she understood and she got it. And looking back, good for her. But for me, it just, because it started to kind of be less about the stories and the characters, it was harder for me to really stay on point and stay focused. So with that, I give her, my hat is off to her. She went after me, but because I think at the end I just was just like, it's just, I don't know, I think there was like a little certain sadness about going away from the characters and the idea of what I think of comic books. But I have to, looking back, have to at least give her a little bit of ups for that.
Was there any particular moment in time on the show that you felt she went after somebody really, really, more than she should have? At any particular point when you...
No. Yeah.
Yeah, was there any particular point that you kind of looked at and said, either while you were on the show or off the show, rewatching it kind of thing? Because I know that some people like to rewatch their time on TV and go, oh, well, oh my God, did I say, oh my God, did I say that? Did I do this? Was there any point in time when you were watching the show, did you look at any particular instance and think, oh, I really wish that person hadn't done or said this, or even in regards
to see it. I'm sorry.
Well, sorry. Well, in regards to yourself, was there ever a point when you looked at your own performance and said, "Oh, I really wish I hadn't said that"?
I think for me, it's really hard to look at myself on screen objectively. To be honest, it's really hard to really, really see myself clearly. And people, if I would have done that or said that, I only saw the episodes once because I'm just not really good at watching myself. But so
it's a trait that you and I have in common.
Exactly. I think for me, the only time I was sad. So to answer your first question, I think she and I got in the times she and I got really into it. We're actually caught on tape and we're aired. Because we got into it a couple times because I felt that she was really going too far. And again, not really maybe understanding the whole reality concept. For me, I think that I wasn't upset that I got that reactionary. I think that's who I am organically, and the truth for me is the most important thing. But I think for me, the one thing I am sad, I think I talked to you about it a while ago, was that, you know, when doing the dog scene, because we did the whole dog thing was real. You know, you're in real costume, and I was in real boots, and I got chased down by a dog, and the whole thing did actually come off. Well, the dog pulled off my helmet, and they didn't show that part because I never tapped out, and I think I'm not sure if I'm telling you the story again, but I didn't tap out, and I was later on talked into saying something completely off subject about something else that they were able to edit in and use my voice in and say, so it sounded like I tapped out. So that would be, I think for me, that's the one I regret the most. So I was like, no, I just shouldn't have said anything. That way they couldn't have recorded it. But so, and me looking back, I would have loved to have gone farther in the show. But I think I was really proud that Matt won, because, you know, he just loved it so much. And the beauty about comic books and superheroes is that they don't go away, and you don't stop loving them.
No, they really don't.
So, you know, I still have that. I still have a gold lame costume. I actually made an extra gold. I made a gold cape with a hood, just a golden hood. And living in California, you can walk through the streets and wear that kind of thing, and although it's very bright, nobody really, you know, arrests you. So that's lovely.
Looking back on certain interactions on the show that you had, is there anybody that you would have been... I'm just thinking, how do I want to word this? Okay, when I was watching the show, I picked out a good few, like, kind of, I don't want to say bitchy characters, but those kind of characters that you know are going to say what's on their mind. You know,
do I come up as bitchy? A little bit. That makes it more exciting.
It does. It makes for good TV. So, looking back on it, is there any particular instance that you had with anybody else other than Alison that you looked at, like when you watched it that one time off the show, and went, oh, I maybe shouldn't have said that to that person because they really didn't deserve me coming to
go back and watch the show. It's been a while, so I don't remember, but I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. Oh, now I've got to... Did I? I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, so when it comes to the eliminations, you guys, well, I don't know if it was the same for season 1 as it was for season 2, but 95% of the time, you guys were kept in the dark, from what I'm told from the guys from season 2 about who was going out. It literally was up on the podium in front of the big TV with Stan, and he told them, it's this person going home.
Yeah.
How was that for you guys? Like, because obviously the cast from season 2 said by the time they got to the point that they were at, a lot of people were very, very close with each other, and obviously that reverberates in season 1 as well. So how difficult was it for you when people were being eliminated? Was there anyone in particular?
It was painful. Every time was painful because everybody, you know, people wanted it, and then as time wore on, you know, because it was such a lack of sleep, living in being away from the rest of the world, all the pressures that go along with being on the show would make you would just be so emotionally geared up and so emotionally vested, or vested with those people you made those connections with. You didn't want anybody to go or to be out to. It was really, really sad. I think I cried. I'm not sure if they showed it, but I'm pretty sure I cried a lot of the time. And I'm not a big crier, but I really hate seeing people get their feelings hurt. It really sucks.
During the eliminations, you definitely did.
Did I?
Because I remember watching it, and you were one of the people that I thought, yeah, she's not gonna like break down. You know, she's not gonna have one of those moments where she's like blubbering in the corner, like going,
Really?
you know, like this person's so mean, you know.
Yeah.
But when it came to the eliminations, I pretty much looked at my cousins and we all said, yeah, like all bets are off. It doesn't matter if they've like got the attitude of Seal or like whatever, you know. Obviously they're spending a lot of time with these people, they're gonna get emotional. And I remember like when I was analysing the show for my college degree actually, I remember looking at it again and going, when you do spend this amount of time with people, and especially when it's a reality TV show, the producers are counting on that unity that you form with these people, and they're counting on the fact that if you take away one of these people, that everyone's going to get emotional about it. You know, and it was so interesting because I remember looking at it again from a psychology side as well, and going, God, what asses these producers are! They're intentionally making these people cry. That's not right. Like, how do they sleep at night, you know? But, you know, I just, ugh. So, was there anybody that left the show, either early on or midway, that you kind of just went, yeah, it's time for that person to go home? You know, because either that can be from your own, yeah, they need to go home, or...
I don't know if I want to admit to that. I don't.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you want me to...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Kangaroo, though.
That's okay.
I do all of them. I think they're lovely. But...
Okay. Was there anybody that you were very surprised at that went home? Like, I know that you mentioned Tobias going home quite early on and how you were quite close with him. Was there anybody else that went home either midway through before, like yourself, that you were kind of surprised that they were picked?
I'm trying to remember. Watching Chris Waters go, Captain, oh God, I forget the superhero. Watching him go was a little bit rough. Because I think he did the way he went was a bit weird. It was like his past or something, and he was really making a different place for himself in the world. That was watching that was hard. I wasn't particularly close with him. We got on very, very well. I was probably closer to Nitro, who was, you know, that was a bummer for me because I just, you know, I adore him. But yeah, watching that was a bit weird, I think.
Now, the one person I want to ask you about that was on the show, Major Victory. Yeah. Now, whenever he was on camera, he felt like he was like larger than life. You know, was he the same when the cameras weren't rolling?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about him. What Major Victory is Chris Waters, right?
Oh,
Red.
I think so. Yeah, red with the black V.
Yeah, we're talking about the same person.
Okay, so
he's a sweetheart. Chris is a sweet, kind human being. I think before the start we were talking about a bit of gossip with him. And I'm not sure if you know that. So when I first was doing the show, I was auditioning for the show. There was a runoff online between myself and I don't remember what her superhero name was, and this beautiful blonde woman superhero who didn't get the show. Well, during I think an event a couple of years later, Chris met her, and they ended up getting married.
Oh.
And they have a baby now, and I think they live in San Francisco. But yeah, they know. So that was a really, really sweet thing. But he's actually, or at least when I knew him, because I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, just he could put it on, but he really had the heart to back it up. You know what I mean? I mean, he's putting it on a little bit, but who cares? The guy had such heart. Good for him. Do you know what I mean? So, and he, I think because he approached everything like that, his approach I found endearing.
You mentioned about his past being possibly one of the reasons why he was eliminated. We won't go into, well, I vaguely mentioned what it was, his past was. You know, he was identified as being a stripper. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of didn't really set well with the the producers and the theme of the show. They wanted to present a really good family-orientated kind of thing. But he himself mentioned, you know, that he was doing this show to be a better person. You know, that he had a daughter and he wanted to set a good example for her. And when we heard that as viewers, I was just like, you know what? It doesn't matter what you did in the past. It really doesn't. You could be the most evil, spiteful person in the past, and if you've made a point of recognizing that you were, and that you're willing to change, then you should be given the chance.
Yeah.
So we were all quite angry that had happened, you know, and we were like, you know, it should have been somebody else, you know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Well, it's interesting, you know, how that whole process I found out later. Mm-hmm. So during the application process, you write down all the names, or you write down a couple references, and they call you references, and that's how they find out all the dirt. So that was interesting to hear that, and to hear what had happened and all those things, or because everybody had a little bit of dirt on them, and to hear where it came from, that was a very interesting thing, because especially I think when you're an avid reader of comics and of fantasy or sci-fi, every character has these. That's part of their arc or their beginnings. There's always a little something, and for me, and you know, all good for the show, and whatever their approach was their approach to the show that they took. But for me, when I read these stories, I like that characters are not perfect, because frankly, I don't find that interesting. I find a character who has somewhere to go in life definitely interesting. So I was with you. No!
Like, you know? I think it is very good. In that sense, it's a very good place to put that kind of thing, because living up to a character that has no shady, like, back history, as it were, like, shady back history, whatever, the character becomes very, very difficult to aspire to. And as a hero, like, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping to inspire people to be a better version of themselves. And if there's no, like, back part of that character's history that you can say, oh, well, that's why this character is who they are today, then you can't relate to them, and it just becomes this one-dimensional character that you just end up not caring about. You know, so it's like, you need that little bit of darkness.
Yeah, okay. As you're saying that, it reminds me of the story I've been writing. I'm like, oh, you're right. I could do this and this, and yeah. I mean, you're thank you. That's going to help me later in my work.
You're welcome.
I'm excited. I'll get off the phone with you, get off with you, and start typing. And although I do like a pen and paper. I do like pencil and paper.
Awesome.
I even bought my first electrical pencil sharpener. My very own. Very.
So you mentioned about the dog challenge, which made its return in season 2 as well. Mm-hmm. Was there any particular challenge that you guys on the show were presented with where you just went, the WTF? You know, like, you were just like, the hell am I going to get through this?
I think the dog challenge was definitely one of those. There was one of the first challenges, not the first, because we were running through Pershing Square, the first, but I think the second, there was one where they blindfolded you and they had you going across a skyscraper on a ladder. And that was, because I have a little height issue. For me, I remember going, oh, holy how am I going to get through this? And I mean, I generally try to get, I mean, like I said, I don't generally cower in a corner. It's not the kind of girl I am, even if it's inside of my head, like, ah! I'm just like, yeah, I could do it. Sure, let's go for it right now. Yeah. Inside, I'm just going, oh my god, because I do have that inside of me. I have that cowardly little girl going, oh my god, don't pee your pants, don't pee your pants, don't pee your pants. One, so that for me was a hard one. Like going across, I remember like I was either on a plank or on like a ladder, and they told me we were like 30 feet up or something, or 20 stories or some craziness like that. And of course, it turned out we weren't. But that's a really hard one for me. The dog thing, I was actually like, oh, I'm getting this done. I could do this, because my feet were on the ground. The one where my feet weren't touching, or had we had to go out to sea, that might have freaked me out a little bit. I have a thing about, I don't really want to drown. I just don't. It's not one of my goals in life. No. So that would have freaked me out a little bit. Sharks also, but we didn't have those, which I was grateful for. But yeah, no, the whole feet not touching the ground and on like a store, high above the city, that for me was like, oh my god, yeah.
So again, going off of the dog challenge again, you obviously had almost everybody had this kind of like adrenaline running off of that one. Was there any other particular challenge that you just totally loved doing?
Besides that one, the dog one was good. I'm trying to remember. The first one was all right. Like, oh, you've got to run through the crowd in your costume and just be superhero. That was kind of embarrassing because you're like other people around, but it was unbelievably. There's something beautiful about having the permission to run the crowded streets of a city and be a superhero. That challenge, I think there was like a girl crying, and then you had to go, like, it was whether you just went and did your goal or saved the girl. And I am that person. Like, I'll literally be late for something and somebody's crying and freaking out and just be, I'm going to be late, But but that moment before that, where you just got to run through the city and be like, I'm a superhero! I have permission to do it! It's kind of nice. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question I've got for you was, there was a lot of PR for the show. There's a lot of photographs done with like yourself on your own, with the other members of the cast, and with Stan Lee. So what was that like? Now, were the photographs done before the show started or midway through? Do you remember?
I believe it was during the show.
Okay.
About halfway, because other members got to come back. They'd been off, so it was like, oh, you got to see him again. Like, oh, you're still around, because you're still stuck in the house, sequestered from the world, and to see other friends come back, it was really lovely. And then of course you sit and talk to Stan, crack jokes. Stan tells you stories about random things, which is pretty cool. Doesn't hurt. We'll have a cup of coffee and listen to Stanley tell stories.
So what was the photographing side like? Was that something that you were accustomed to at that point, or were you just kind of like,
the superhero thing? Because I've been a model on and off my entire life. I'm just something I'm very used to. Mm-hmm. Doing like superhero poses with seriousness it took a while to get used to. And then having permission, again, when I finally gave myself permission to strike those poses or do those moves, it brought out a part of me that I didn't realize that I'd missed as a kid. I'd missed that part of that complete freedom in doing something that was super, super suspended from reality. And just, kaboom, you're blowing things up, green screen is fun, but I think when you're doing photographs, you have to blow it up even more. And I think the more that I look back, I would love to even be more crazy and more, maybe I would have added extra arms or something to the costume.
Now you mentioned there about green screening. Was that something that you'd ever done before? I'm trying to think if I did a movie either before or after that. I don't remember if it was where I was actually suspended mid-air for a lot of the movie
behind green screen. I'm trying to remember if it was before or after that. Yeah, where I was, there's a trampoline and I was suspended, and the other characters were suspended, trampolines on green screen. But I think that was after. So I think that was probably one of the first times I really worked a lot with green screen. So then, and it really helped me when I had to go when I did a movie afterwards that involved a lot of almost exclusively green screen. So it was nice to be able to have that as a reference, and then have that like, oh, have you done this before? I was like, yeah, I was with Stan Lee the last time. Like, it's great. It was just fine. I probably didn't say that because I try to usually say that, but in my head, it gave me the confidence that, yeah, yes, I have.
Now, we mentioned that you got the opportunity to sit down with Stan Lee when doing the photo shoot. Now, as a writer, did you pick his brains at any point?
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, what do you think of this? Does this work? Oh, my, I totally nerded out. Are you kidding me? Sitting with, as a writer, sitting with Stan Lee and talk. I mean, every time I saw him, I'd be like, "Hey, Stan." So I just dorked out the whole time. There's stuff like I think we remember being in Comic-Con and we all walk out and we're all in our superhero costumes, looking really, serious and brave and all these things. And in my head, I'm like this little girl going, "Ah! Ah!" You know what I mean? And because in the green room talking about, oh, Stan, I created this new character, and he would ask like one or two questions, and you're just like, oh, well, this and that, and just completely, and then of course you have to be superhero mode, and you have to like pretend like you're cool too, and inside, yeah, really seriously, inside him, I'm just like, there's something really fun about, having this person who knows so much about these universes. And when you bringing them your own universe and going, what do you think of this? And then validating you by continuing to ask you questions and being curious about your universe is just.
Now, I've got a good question here for you. Is Stan Lee as big of okay, I'm trying to think how to word this without pissing off Stan Lee. So Stan Lee, if you're watching this, please don't take it personally. But when you're presenting him with ideas, is he just as excited about it as you are? Or would you say that you're more excited than he is?
Oh, I think I'm a little fangirl. Or at least in my head I am, so I don't really know what it looks like because in my head. And I think he was very careful about story because he's professional and you can't really tell him too much information because he is a professional. But he's a cool cat. He's got the gazelles going, and he's a cool cat. He does things with calm and pace that I hope to have as a writer and a creator of story and of character. But he's cool, man.
So do you still contact him with ideas, or like do you have the opportunity to speak to him and say, well, what do you think of this character, or how would I restructure this storyline?
I didn't have we've never gotten into detail. It was more like nice encouragement. It was probably like, nice, you did a good job, but just he would ask one or two questions. But because of the legality of it, I think we never had really really in depth conversations with that kind of stuff. And he's a professional, but he was very encouraging. We're like, yeah, you should do that, or oh, that's interesting, and just in the tone and his inflection. Well, tell me about okay, well, you got to do it. You got to keep on going. And like, well, I am so confused about it. And he's just like, just keep on going. Just keep on writing. Keep on writing. And that for me was really the I wouldn't get specific things from him. I would get encouragement, and that was really cool. And that was really, I think, probably the only thing I probably could have heard at the moment anyway. But he just was encouraging. That was the most thing. So because of
from the writing point of view of your characters on the show, do you know by any chance if there was any character that was changed by the producers and by Stan on the show? You don't have to name names if you don't want to. You can just say yes or no.
I do. There was a character that was not my character. There was a character on the show that there was some copyright issues with.
Okay. So were they changed drastically from what the original?
Just small
okay.
details. The same ideology, but small details.
Okay.
Not like more like kind of more costume-esque stuff than anything else, really. Trying to remember, yeah. The one specific thing I'm thinking of, yeah.
So when you're on, when you were on the show, did you pick out, other than yourself, of course, was there anybody that you picked out to be early, like, finalists on the show?
I thought that Steel Chambers would go farther, but of course he did in a different capacity. So that was surprising. I thought Nitro would go farther than me because his knowledge of comic books was much more in depth than mine was by far. I'm more of a general story, like I'm probably more of a fantasy fan, where he was more like straight superhero. Like I like to weave them all together. So I was surprised that he didn't last as long as I did. Those are probably the two. And again, there's a couple that you kind of knew that might go first or second.
Okay. Do you think having, like, for a show like that, do you think having a really big knowledge of comic books and superheroes is a bit of a handicap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think, well, maybe it was not if you were to do that show now, because I think that you, because it was a reality show, it was about a reality show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the reasons why Ellison did so well, because she really understood it was about a reality show. It wasn't necessarily about the superhero aspect of it.
Okay. When it got to the point of the final two, which was Alison and Matt, were you watching the show at home at that point, or were you not really watching?
We were allowed to. I'm trying to remember, because I got off really late. I was the third one in, so I think there might have been one episode when I was off and then to the last episode, because we were all in the last episode, so they were still filming that. So there might have, I'm trying to remember if there was an episode that I saw while I was off, because it was just I think it was less than it might have been like 4 days. So I don't actually think, now that I think about it, I don't, because there wasn't I don't think I looked online. I'm trying to remember, but I don't think I saw a lot of it because I really wasn't out of the house very long until the end of the show. Because it seemed, I think this looked like weeks, but it really was like a 3 or 4 day period that was being shot. So I don't think that there was anything airing while I was actually out of the house. It was literally, I got off, I had like 3 days of surreal reality, and then I was back on the show again. And then it wrapped, and then it was like, oh, we couldn't tell anybody. When we waited, and then seeing the online, and then you couldn't really. There was some things they didn't want us to react with people about, and then when you would go online to talk, like to certain forums, because everybody was watching the show, it was kind of hard, and I wasn't to watch back shows because it was a very interesting time. I would get on the computer, and you'd go onto public forums, and you would just get so inundated. It was really, really hard to move. It was almost like it was like being digitally crowded, but on accident, not on purpose. Nobody was. I was very lucky. I don't know how anybody else fared, but I was really lucky that I had a lot of support. I think I got a little bit of backlash after the second season aired, because I think a lot of people compared to myself and Basura, Anya. I think that woman is amazing. And I see her at events and and talk to her online occasionally. But that was the only time that I had any kind of people were like, oh, they should fight each other. She was better than this, because we were like the Latina badasses, and so of course we should fight each other as opposed to like be friends and go out into the world, which is of course really what more or less happened when we did finally meet in person. We were just like, hey, how are ya? How you doing? Let's go check out this concert over here, because we were at some con and it was like, did you see that? I was like, no, let's go! And they found. I
have had the pleasure of speaking with Anya on social media, and she's one of the most down to earth people that I've spoken to. Like, she is just so calm, so collective, different type of energy from everybody that I've spoken to. And I'm like, wow. Like, just wow. which it is so different from what she portrayed on the show. You know, like, you could get aspects of she's quite a calm, cool and collective individual, but also quite energetic on the show when it's something that she's passionate about. But just knowing that she's so down to earth, because like I was really, like, when I've contacted, and this is a little bit of a secret that I'm sharing now, when I've contacted everybody for Behind the Mask, I'm always going in with the knowledge that I might necessarily not get like contacted back from them, you know, because everybody has busy schedules and such likes. But I'm also realizing, hey, I'm asking somebody to take time out of their day and come and speak to me about their time on a television show, and they might not necessarily want to do that. But the reaction that I had from her was very warm, very calm. Haven't had much of an interaction with her since, although I've been trying to contact her. So who knows, we might see her in the future. Maybe she might be the next interview after this. I don't know. Anything's possible. But such a different energy, and absolute pleasure to talk to as well.
She has a certain sense of gravitas that is in person. I don't know. I don't really know if it's hard to see people on the screen that you know. But her, gravitas is really the only word I can think about her, because she does have that. She has such depth organically. It's a gift to see.
Awesome. So going back to the show for the final one, did you guys get told who was going to win ahead of time, or?
No, it was great. Oh my God, parked in your car, going up the things in Universal, seeing other friends you hadn't seen. Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Who's on it? Oh, it's down to like, we always call, no, do we call them? No, at that time we were still always calling each other our superhero names, even on the phone or in person. Like, it was still, hey, Lamuria, or I think Darren always called, so I think he still calls me Lou. But yeah, just like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be, it's Fat Mama, and it's feedback, what's going on, and then what do you think? And then of course, then you're getting caught up, and the producers get their hands on you, and you've got to go in costume, and you've got to do all this in position. But it was exciting. It was just as exciting for all of us, because we didn't know, and I think that was a great thing, and I'm really glad that they didn't tell us, because we got to, in our way, we got to participate with the viewer.
Awesome. When it came to that final unveil that Matt had won the entire show, what was your reaction?
Justice. It was like, all is right in the world. All is right in the world, in this kind of universe that we had been living in. It wasn't that, I mean, especially now that I know Allison a lot better, it was because she really went to the show with a reality perspective, and it was a reality show, so that's great. But because it was about superheroes, the guy that really, really lived it and breathed it and was it, he won. The guy that knew every single little thing about every comic book that you'd ever read, or every little thing about everything, and cared and wore costumes to make people happy in hospitals, and did all that, and the good guy who was so unbelievably earnest won. And it was just, I know it was just a reality show, and something like, well, it's just comic books, but to me it was just, it was like everything was right in the world for that minute, you know? The guy that really deserved it won.
Have you had the chance to converse with Matt since he won?
I saw him a couple times after that. We all went to dinner a couple times. Not all of us, but all of us that were kind of still in the area went to dinner afterwards. And of course we saw each other during the press junkets and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I talked to him a little bit, but not a ton. I think he was just so happy to be there. And he's a kind of get it done kind of a guy. He's kind of always getting stuff done. So he and I didn't do a load of chatting, but we over we did for a while. It was just good to see him what he was doing, and he seemed very happy with the outcome, and that was really cool.
Now, sadly, we didn't get any of the comic books from either season 1 or season 2's winners over in the UK. Do you remember what the reaction was that you had when you picked up a feedback comic book?
I think I just cried. Just so happy for him, you know? Yeah. I mean, he wanted it so bad, and it meant so much. The book itself. Yeah, it was just like, good, yes, good for you. You know, Sparta. You know, you're as one of the soldiers. You're happy that your fearless leader wins.
Now, given the comic book that he first appears in, who was the first person that you kind of contacted about it and said, I know this guy? You know, I was in the house with this guy.
Literally, like, every time I would go online, still, it was like you would go online and it was there wasn't a chance for me to go out into the world and say, I mean, years later there was, but not, like, you were still getting, for the first couple of years, because the show would cycle through the US, then the UK, then Indonesia, and so I'd go online, and it would just, there was no time. It was like, oh, what did you think of this? And I literally had to, I would go on to, like, get something done, and then, and see stuff, like, pop up, and, oh, okay, no, I'm sorry, you know, I can't, I couldn't really go online a lot, so I went back to reading books and writing stories. So, I mean, and so when I had the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, well, what do you think of that? And it was freaking awesome. It was great to see people do that well, you know.
Mm-hmm. Now, a little bit about the movie that Matt appears in. I personally, again, I don't know whether Sci-Fi did a separate movie with Matt, but the movie that we got was one that starred, I can't remember his name. He was the nerdy one in Stargate SG-1, the one that always put in the code.
See, I think of the cartoon, the Stargate cartoon, with the guy with the glasses and cute hair, the cartoony one. So I don't remember. I'm trying to remember the other one, but I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
the one that had Richard Dean Anderson and Amanda Tapping in it.
Ah, yes.
So the guy that would plonk in the code, basically, he was like the star of this movie, and it was about this giant snake that went around eating people, like, whole, and it grew even bigger and bigger over time, like your typical sci-fi movie, basically. And I thought, oh, this is the one that feedbacks in. He's going to be like a central character in it, and we'll eventually see him. It ends up, like, towards the end of the movie. The snake basically makes its way to this kind of, like, carnival area.
Sorry, I have a landline and it's ringing. It never rings.
Oh, right. Well, we'll be back in 1 second, guys. So the snake is, like, making its way towards a very crowded fairground, basically, and it makes its way to where Matt, we finally get to see Matt in his feedback glory, doing a talk to young children about, I think it's highway code, like, road safety, and it kind of arches up and spreads out its fan, and he says, like, don't worry, kids, as the kids all run away screaming, I'll handle this. He picks up this kind of, like, stage light and says, it's time for some feedback, shocks the snake runs away, and then that's it. You know, that is the end of what he was in the movie. And I got extremely disappointed about that, because I thought, here is his finally, I've waited so long to see him on screen as feedback in a movie, and that's all we got. So I was very angry at how that all came about.
I think it was a very tricky time for sci-fi. Sci-fi was being run by the same person that was running Bravo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was this really great executive that we all dealt with named Bill Brennan. He was the PR guy, I think, at that time. I think he actually might run sci-fi now. He runs one of the networks now. And he was always much more, like, always trying to get us out there more. And he was really a big advocate for our show. I think at the time, I don't remember the name of the CEO or the person who was running Bravo, but she was this woman who was very she was running sci-fi and she was running Bravo at the same time. And Bravo was really her child. I think that all the housewife stuff had just really, I think it was in maybe the second season, it was really blowing up. So I think that was really her focus, and she wasn't a sci-fi fan, she was just a very good executive. So I think that I'm assuming, it's very tricky, that we might have gotten a little bit lost in that. And sci-fi, I think, was an interesting time for sci-fi as well. Because it's I find it such a beloved concept, just of having this network that has all of these things that are encompassed together. And of course, if you're a big fan of any of these elements, you realize they could all be their own network, So I think that it might have gotten lost in translation to NBC Universal because it just wasn't as much of their focus. Although I know that they very much, Bill Brennan there really, really loved the show, really loved the network. I think it was just the timing probably had a little bit to do with it, because there was a lot of transition and I think reality was still finding its footing in the world consciousness. I think that probably, had it been a different time, if that show was shot now and the followings that you do get on social media, it'd probably be a very, very different story.
Definitely. That's actually one of the things that I wanted to ask you about as well. But I want to talk a little bit about season 2. When they mentioned that they were doing a season 2, did you actively just kind of sit back and kind of slightly giggle to yourself, saying, I know all the hell they're going to go through?
Oh, I was just excited. I was excited because there were so many people that you met, like at Comic-Con and all these other things, that had tried out that hadn't gotten in. And I was really excited for all the people that really wanted to do the show that hadn't gotten in. So for me, it was just like, it wasn't, about, oh my God, they're going to go through this and this and this. It was more just like, oh my God, who's going to be on it? What kind of characters they're going to be? What kind of costumes? It was more from the fan perspective, I think. It was more, I think whenever I've done any project, I love doing it. And then when I'm done, I'm kind of done. I love the act of making stuff. So I kind of was just more of a fan. We're like, oh, what are we going to see? What's going to happen? And then I think I lost my cable or something. So it took a while to find out who everybody was. And I really more got to meet the characters that got on the show when I did press with them. And that was super, for me, that was kind of more of a fangirl thing. It was like, oh yeah, and then you kind of can't, and then that's when it was more about, that camaraderie of, oh God, we did this, you did that, wasn't that crazy? Is that person still working on the show? And that's where the camaraderie came in. Before it was just more like, because I'm a fangirl, and I do love, I get very excited about costumes and about stuff like that.
So my next question for you about season 2 is, now we're not going to, I'm just going to put this out there, we're not specifically singling anybody out. We're not saying that this one particular person was better than the rest, but I do want to ask you, who was your favourite on season 2? Not favourite to one, just favourite as in you enjoyed the performance of the person, you felt that you gravitated more to them than anybody else, kind of thing.
It's so colored by the people that I know now.
Yeah, I know.
What did you first think of it? And it's so colored. I don't even, to be honest, I think it's, I don't know, because I think the people that I get along, that I know now, and I think we've talked about Dan, and we've talked about Anya, who I probably have talked to more than anybody else. I those people as people. Dan is as a master cosplayer. I mean, the guy's game is wicked, is amazing. And he as a person is amazing. And then you take Anya's, I mean, her love for genre and her love for noir are just, dude, I mean...
Her love for costumes as well, because I mentioned I've spoken to her on social media and I've had the pleasure of seeing some of the stuff that she does. And, like, I've also seen what Dan does as well. And like you say, his cosplays are of another level. But I have to admit, Anya's stuff that she does it just kind of like, for me.
I think they're very. I wouldn't call on. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call her a cosplayer.
No.
In the same sense, but she, she does that noir thing. I think in San Francisco, and she does. She's done all different costumes. I wouldn't even call them costumes, because not to take any cosplaying. Cosplaying is a beautiful thing, and creating characters is something I love doing. But she really takes the genre. It's like she envelops the genre of something, and it's like she becomes, as opposed to an individual character. I always feel like when you see her go to an event, she's more of like the embodiment of the genre of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Which again to me speaks to her gravitas. You know what I mean? She's doing these. She has the bag and the thing and I don't know, her noir is some of my favorite, where she just exudes this stuff, and it's just like she could be wearing a garbage bag, man, and it would just be like, yeah, yes, she does that, where and I think where she's in a genre all of her own,
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like that is a good kind of way to put it. That they're all in their own kind of genre, Was there anyone on season 2 that you just kind of went, yeah, I don't think that they're gonna go far,
Yeah.
Okay. Again, you don't need to say who, because...
Yeah, I'll plug myself in. Yeah, but I might end up working with some of these people again. So you never want to say it, but there were maybe
1 or 2 people. Okay.
And I think that's part of what the producers do.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was a season 3 which I think was done with children, and it wasn't so much as what you guys had went through. It was obviously the formula was changed, but if they had to do a season 3 with adults again, and said maybe contacted some of the people from season 1 and season 2 and said, right, we want you to come back as a mentor, would that be something?
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Dude, yeah. Oh, yeah. I would sew some hems for some people. Not just What do you need? I'll throw you over the wall. Yeah.
So you would definitely be open to the fact if say, I don't know if it was necessarily fully Stan Lee that was the head of the show, but if Stan had to contact you, say tomorrow, and said, right, we're looking to put together a season 3 for adults, and we want you back as you, but being a mentor to this person, that is something that you'd be interested in doing?
Totally. It's superheroes. I mean, yeah.
So, since the show ended and season 2 ended, obviously you started doing the comic book conventions circuit with the cast of season 1 and season 2 and Stan himself. What was that like for you?
That's really interesting that you asked. Because you did like the Comic-Con and stuff like that. I didn't do a lot of I didn't do a lot of the additional cons. Like, I didn't travel for the cons. I because I was working as an actor, I was busy working, and I was in the middle of writing a movie at the time. But also, I didn't know, like, there were people at the time that were selling their autographs, and I just didn't understand that part of it. Again, I'm a fangirl that likes to write and make movies and do stuff like that. So to meet people and charge them for your autograph, it's just not really my bag. So I really I didn't really end up doing a lot of cons. And then looking back, especially having, talking to you, and really appreciating that a lot of people really liked the show. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't do as many cons, because it would have been really, really lovely just to be there, because I love cons. I just missed WonderCon. I think it was last weekend or the weekend before. And I really love being in that creative element that cons lend themselves to. So in that respect, I'm really bummed that I didn't miss a lot of it, because I have other friends that have done other shows. Have done like Buffy and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you should have gone to Australia. You should have done this. You should have done this." They would have flown you out here, and it was very hard for me to. I just felt like it was taking advantage of fans to like charge a little bit, because I love the character so much. It's just a little bit like, no, it's creativity. I mean, it was weird because it was very naive of me, and I don't generally think of myself as naive, but I know that when it comes to story and books, I'm colorblind. So I really bummed, because I would hear about these things, and years later I'd hear from Allison, or I'd see her at events, and she'd be like, "Oh, I did this event, and they paid for me to go out here and did it, and I think I was still, like, it took me a very long time to really get along with Allison, because I think I took so much stuff personally. And I was a little bit envious that she did go and do all of these things, and she did deal with a lot of fans, and she made money. She made money in places that I didn't even cross my mind. And it wasn't the money thing wasn't necessarily where I was a little bit weird about it. I mean, it's for her to do. You do in your life what you want to do. But it was more that I was kind of sad that I didn't get to meet all the fans and see the stuff and read all the extra things. When you go to comic books and read all the extra books and stories and see the costumes. And so for that, I really wish I could have seen it. So since then, I pay to go, like, to Comic-Con, or I've gone to, I have friends that are in different businesses, and like, hey, do you want to come and, come check out Comic-Con this year, go to Comikaze, so it's more local. And I'm like, yeah, of course, and I walk around, and I'm the biggest, I try not to bring too much money, because I want to buy everything, and,
That is a common thing for any cosplayer, not to bring too much money or whatever, because you end up wanting to buy stuff, and then you have to lug it about with you, and it's like, my arm's falling off because I've got props under one hand, and all the stuff I've bought under the other. And I always say to people, that's why I bring people with me. They think I'm being, like, nice and saying, hey, would you like to come to Comic-Con with me? I'm not being nice. I'm bringing them because I need someone to carry my shit.
Oh, I think if I had to go again in costume, I might just have somebody who could, like, walk behind me. Not behind me. That sounds really weird. Did I ever tell you about the time I had some problems with people that kept on videotaping me walking, but just my butt. It was a little, like, literally maybe like 5 paces back, and it was more than one person throughout, like, a convention, and it's a gold. I'm in costume in gold and stuff. But literally, it was just like it gets to a point, like, sometimes you're like, you're like, hey, I'm a person in here. You're freaking me out a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think that sometimes, especially when you're on television, people dissociate you. You're like kind of like a toy almost, or you're not really quite real. So when they deal with you, they're not really seeing you as a person. So, like, people would videotape me and it would like parts of like I think because I tend to be a little more wound down, like videotape my boobs, and like I'd be talking and I'd be videotape my boobs. I'm like, really? Like, I mean,
like,
I understand
like
that.
Up here, like
yeah,
up
like,
here,
face. Exactly. Or or like right behind you, like with their camera, like literally at your butt, walking behind you. And after a while, I think this is kind of getting to the point where that's not really okay. And you want to be nice because you don't know how dissociated that person is. And also, it might just be very innocent, because, but it's a little bit scary. So I think sometimes when I've gone in costume, I have occasionally gone with people, and then when I don't go in costume, I feel a lot more comfortable. I wear all leather or something. I have, but.
So, with the show being well and truly over now, and you've done the comic book circuit and such likes, and you've got the opportunity to interact with the fans a lot more so now. Mm-hmm. Has any of the fans ever came to you with a story, whether it's been at a convention or got in touch with you through social media, that really did kind of like get you there? That really just kind of like, in the feelings,
Oh, you mean just as a fan?
Yeah, has anybody ever contacted you and said...
There was a little boy that actually that was trying to contact me during the show that was really excited about me. And he actually ended up sending a bunch of stuff to NBC and Universal and asking me to sign stuff. And I think we sent something out, or I gave something to one of the executives to send out and stuff like that. And that was really happening. Just the looks on people's faces, or when somebody tells you, what I really like? I mean, it's nice to have somebody appreciate my character. But I really, really like when people are excited about their own stuff and they want to share it with me. And I love that people are willing to be open with me about sometimes their most trusted secret writing or their drawings or their costumes. I feel so honored to be entrusted with their creative ventures. Mm-hmm. To me, that's the gift. You know what I mean?
Now, I remember a while back, I was in Glasgow for a book signing. Mm-hmm. Not my own book. I just want to put that out there. It was somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. I don't have the time to write. I wish I did it, but I don't. But it was, I'm trying to remember how you pronounce his name. In fact, do I have the book nearby? I might have the book nearby. But it was for one of the people who was on the Australian Hercules and Xena TV shows.
Oh, you mean the guy? The American guy? The American actor?
I'm not entirely sure.
Talk about hair?
No, not Bruce Campbell. He worked very, very closely with Bruce Campbell on multiple TV shows, multiple episodes of the TV's shows, respectively. And here it is. It is Robert Trebor.
Oh, interesting.
He played a character called Salmonius on the show, which was very much comic relief. Mm-hmm. So I remember going out to Glasgow to get his autograph and his book. And the shop that we went to was Forbidden Planet, which is probably known the world over. It is the one-stop shop for geeks in general. Geeks, nerds, you will love it. Go there. Now, the shop itself in Glasgow is not a massively big shop. It never has been. It's quite a small store. Not like the one in London, which is 6 or 7 like levels but then London is a bigger place, so they have to have more room. So I went along, and I, like, months before we went, I knew he was coming. So I was constantly typing every chance I got when I was still in school, a story that I wanted to give him, to give to Lucy Lawless, because I was a massively big fan of the show Xena at the time. And I remember going along and just being so intimidated from meeting him, because I was like, this is a guy that's worked with Kevin Sorbo, he's worked with Lucy Wallace, he's worked with a whole host of different people, including Bruce Campbell. And I remember like shaking as I'm handing over the story and saying to him, can you please give this to Lucy or whoever, So I pass him it, and he says, thank you, like, how long did you take to write this? And I was like, the better part of 2 to 3 months. And he's like, oh, well done, and it's great that you're writing. And I do believe, if I read it, no, he didn't. I thought he'd like written down in his book, which I'm just gonna put there. It's probably on the internet. You can find it somewhere, guys. He just kind of said to me, writing a book is not as easy as it is writing like what you've written, which is like a bit of a script. But just keep at it, and keep writing, and as long as you enjoy the experience of writing the story, you've got nothing to worry about. And it was just so refreshing getting that kind of thing, that almost like vindication off of him. That this is something that you obviously enjoy doing, so keep at it. And ever since then, I have been writing every chance I can get. Not in recent years, so, but it is so great to get that vindication from somebody that you kind of look up to in a sense.
Yeah, totally understand.
Kind of like your reaction, well, your, not reactions, but your...
Action.
Pardon?
My interaction with Stan Lee.
Exactly. Exactly. It's kind of like that. So, going on from that, we're going to talk a little bit about now what you're doing nowadays.
What I'm doing nowadays. What I've done. So, what am I doing? So right now I'm working on a, it's kind of like I'm doing a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing and rewriting and writing again at this whole universe. It's based in fantasy. I don't know how much you really can say about it, because you don't want to, you don't want any of your ideas to go.
Let's kind of talk about your creative process on that
Well,
point then.
so for the particular, I've been writing this series for a little while. Hopefully that I'm writing. So I'm writing the story, and the whole the prehistory of the story is like a small book. So it's like the idea is that you read this book that gives you the whole backstory, but it's written in book, like a small book form. We're trying to figure out if I should do a comic, or I'm trying to figure out if I should do a comic book form or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then do the series, do the small series, hopefully an online series about what happens, about the actual story about it. But I love the idea of working with different media. I really, you hear a lot about people talking about media in the sense that where this is a multimedia project, and we've got a book coming out, we've got this coming out. And I think that people write one element of it and they kind of tack on other things. Mm-hmm. Where I think I've always looked at creating this show from in the beginning, doing it from a VR perspective. So
mm-hmm.
the first 30 seconds, there's 6 30-second episodes that are all VR. So the idea is that you see these images, or these not even 30 seconds, they're about 15 seconds each. Of you meet this character, and then you read the comic book about where that character might have come from, and then you watch her on the adventure, and at the same time you also watch the making of what we're doing. So it's being able to touch it, it's being able to feel with the VR, feel it, and it's and also on screen being able to see it, and then also watching the making of it, being able to interact with it. So it's really creating a story that gets you from all different senses, and using the media not as tack-on pieces, but as in different forms of having you experience the story, and not so. But the original 6 episodes on VR won't be done any other way. You won't be able to read about them. You could see them on maybe on a regular screen, but because you couldn't react the same way, it wouldn't be the same thing. So the idea is that you have to reach out with different elements, and hopefully you can do most of it for free, because I'm not sure how we're going to do it without being able to do it with a lot of money. I love the idea of not having the financial barrier with a story, because story ideas should be free. But that we're still trying to figure that out. So I've written this whole backstory. It's really elaborate. I love myths. So reading myths or stories, or I love hearing about ancient legends from different people, which is one of the offshoots of the show. The idea is that when we do shoot the show and a lot of behind the scenes stuff, we want to do in different parts of the world with a very small skeleton crew. And I'd really like to talk to the people, the different areas that we want to shoot with, and hear about the local legends, and to continue to incorporate that as the show goes on, and incorporating world legends from small different parts of the world. And I hopefully it will work out. That's something I've been working on for a long time, because I wanted to have a really clear story, that when you read it, you would really, that it was worth the time it took to read it and to be involved in it. And I think the feedback's been pretty good so far. I had a Spanish company that was going to do it last year, but we lost the financing, which was a really big bummer. So hopefully we can look at something doing it this year, and maybe doing it in a different way. So originally we started to try to do it as a Kickstarter. That didn't work out because I think I asked for too much money, frankly, and I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, and we also didn't do it professionally. And I've since learned that people actually hire companies to do Kickstarter campaigns. I didn't know that at the time, because I'm surprised, because I'm generally a pretty worldly person. But when it comes to my ideas and creating, I do tend to get a bit naive, because I get lost in my own world of making things. That it's hard for me to see the rest of the world. So it's been an interesting learning process with Kickstarter, not working, going the traditional route of financing. We're going to go through Spain, and then going another route. Now we'll see hopefully how that turns out. So we'll see how that goes. So a lot of it, I'm writing that, really working out how writing in a multimedia fashion. For me, I find it just annoyed the living crap out of me. Because it's a multimedia story, and you can go on our website, and you can do it with Instagram, and you can do it with Facebook, and then we have this. It's just it's just inorganic to me. Where I think,
do you know what bugs me sometimes? I totally get where you're coming from on that one, because there are multiple things that I'm trying to do at the moment. Because I have mentioned to you some of the projects I've got planned for later in the year, and I'm constantly looking at social media, constantly thinking, right, where would this aspect of what I'm planning fit in on social media? Where would it go? And then as soon as I've gotten one point of where it could go, I'm oh, but it could also go here, and I need to adapt it to fit for here and to fit for there. And when I start working with other organizations, because there are multiple people that I work with, I see that they're only on one form of social media, and I'm but you've got such a good message, and that message it's not transcending, it's stuck in the one place. You say you understand social media, but you clearly don't if you're stuck in the one place. You have to be adaptable.
That's tricky. Yeah, and it's always changing. And I think the idea of it's always changing. It's very hard because you work with one person and really try to pitch a story and pitch an idea, and then well, you have all these social media and you have to. For me, it's like, no, this is really all of these things come into play, and because I think especially the way that if you look at media now from a nerd perspective, maybe it's easier to see all these different bubbles all work together because this is how we're consuming. And when I write a story, sometimes I'll write the story with all these different elements, and writing that as a fluid story, which can be. I find it easier to write it and harder to pitch it because I think a lot of people that have the money to do the shows don't necessarily consume media in that way. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, I'll see something on VR and I'll react in some way, or maybe I might be gaming, and I don't game as much as I did before, but I love the idea of weaving a story through game, from like a small bit in a small game that you might play, and then you're on like a message board that you find. It's really creating that, what is it? Alice goes down, no, they're not the looking glass, the hole, the idea of going down the internet hole, rabbit hole. But I love the idea of creating that as your storyline. So whether you find the story through VR and you drop in through the rabbit hole that way, or you find it a weird comment in the game and you drop into the story that way. So the story is always going. The idea is that the story, and this is the way I like the way that I'm trying to write now, is that you have stories that are going through. It's the same story, but I'm writing it through different experiences, whether it's through the VR or through a gaming moment or through. And it's this through story, and I love the idea of the audience catching it in different parts, and then having to go back through the rabbit hole and look for the other parts. But trying to explain that to somebody who doesn't understand how social media, gaming, and VR and online shows work, or the experience works for people that are doing all of those things at the same time, it's very hard for them to say, oh yeah, okay, I'll give you X amount of money to do that, because they want to see, oh well, how is it done this way? What are the feedback numbers on this? Does this really work there? Because it's happening on all current platforms. The testing doesn't work out that way. So it's finding those ways somebody really, really gets it and will let me do it versus, oh yeah, give us the story, we'll do it, and then 30 months later, they might come out with part of it. So for me, I'm definitely finding that same thing. Like, how do you do it? How do you find the financing for it? And make it work. So I don't know if anybody has any better ideas than what I'm doing. I'm all up for listening because for me, I really just I love to write the story, or I write. So it's not, sometimes I don't always love it. And I know writers that can write anything and everything. Where for me, it's like, I'm driving and I try not to write and I got to pull over and I'm writing the story. And then I'm hearing on National Public Radio, which is our national radio program here, about how there's this new VR thing and how it works. And I'll be halfway through writing a story and then go look to see how it works and then plug that visual, that way of doing it into the story. Well, what if the character did it? And literally, but as long as I can keep that through line, oh my God, I have such fun in creating the story. By the time I'm finished with the story, it's like, yeah, I wrote the story and he did it, and it's like, okay, what's on to the next story? So it's trying to take the time to also create that and take somebody on that journey with me. So that's really what I'm trying to focus a lot of my energy on. Right now is creating the stories and really finding the financing to make them work. It's not a multi. I don't want to say something different than multimedia because it's not. I don't think it's being translated correctly. Just running a good story that works however it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, and I'm doing a life brand because I tend to. So I make things. I'll make somebody will be like, oh, you're like, oh, I love that dress. I'll make that. Or I love that piece of furniture. I can make me and a screwdriver and a saw, a circular saw, and a bit of wood and some spray paint. Oh my God! I could just I could be lost for days. Or I could make. I'm the person you come to my house. I'm like, hey, you want to learn how to make a table that does this and this and this? Come on, sit down, make a cup of coffee, and let's do that. Or if I have a chance, occasionally I'll be like, yeah, I'll go to an island and go explore the island and go talk to people, or I was in south of Mexico, and I heard about some crazy. I was in a bar talking to somebody person, and I love stories. So if someone starts talking, I try to just shut up and listen. And I heard like some interesting politics that had been happening, and then like 3 days later, I was talking to this taxi driver about it, and he had a whole different perspective. And I like turned on my phone, but I didn't aim my camera at the guy because I just thought that was rude for not telling somebody. And it was like I was able to hear this, this story from a different perspective, and writing. And I wrote a short piece on it. It was more of actually, I guess it was more of like a reporting piece. So right now I'm still writing a lot, making a lot, and kind of going on a bit of an adventure. So I'm really starting to do that just through Instagram. It's at TONATZIN.M. So my first name, Tonatzin.M. On Instagram, you can kind of follow what I'm doing there because I'm always up to stuff. I do have kids. One is Tiger, Fox, and Wolf, and they kind of sometimes come on the adventures with me, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they are the adventure because it's really a gross, interesting, and sticky experience. And and sometimes I'm running through downtown LA, looking through crazy garment districts, and I'm in rooms where literally there are bags of fabric falling on top of me, and then I have to climb myself out, make sure I don't get a ticket from the meter maid, drive down, and then go pick up some kids from school who are like, it's an everyday adventure. So I'm kind of creating a brand, a life adventure brand. On Instagram right now. I'm just doing that visually. There's a little bit of writing on there, and also out from there.
One thing I want to ask you, because you mentioned your kids, and before we got to recording, we actually spoke about our families. When it comes to your writing, do you put a lot of who like in your family into the characters that you're writing? Like how their mannerisms would be? Would you like translate, like say, one of your kids' mannerisms into a character that you're writing?
Maybe not the kids because they're too close.
Mm-hmm.
They're way, way too close to me. So I can't see them. But I've actually, funny enough, some of the superheroes on the show I've written into stuff, because they're friends of mine or people that I know, and their mannerisms I've actually written.
Do they know?
One or two of them. Yeah, it's not. I don't try to. Yeah, one or two of them know. But also, I mean, my dad. I think that my father's played a lot into it, and because I think that a lot of, especially superheroes, it's about your relationship with your parents, and so they tend to sometimes. God, yeah. Sometimes, yeah. Or there's parts about me that I wish that I'm kind of embarrassed about. I might use that in a different way, shaded with different, colored in purple and green so it doesn't look like me. But yeah, it's always different. Yeah, you meet different little people, have different little moments. But I've also been in weird moments where I've read scripts where I'm in, and that's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to work in this place, and there was when a person used to come in and write, and they wanted me to audition for this play that they'd written, and it was about me, and it was literally about me and all the words, and words I actually used, phrases that I used on a regular basis. That was a really weird experience. Yeah, it was. I don't think it was weird in the sense that they were being weird with me. It was just my isms were a vessel for their idea. I try to respect writers and creators, even if it might be a little bit weird. I love the process so much. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Awesome. So we will put a pin in it there, guys. This is the end of the interview. I want to take the time out to thank Lamia for taking so much, well, first of all, having so much patience, and for taking the time out and spending it with us. If, however, you cannot get enough of me for some strange reason, do subscribe to my channel where there will be multiple more interviews with various other people. Don't forget to check out the cosplay interviews on Inside Cosplay. and catch up with my gaming videos. And for some weird ass reason, if you even want more than me than that, you can catch up with me at this lovely website, iGameOnline.net, which is free to sign up at, guys, and we do have a Facebook and a YouTube page where you can catch up with me doing the weekly podcast with Whisper Greentop, Darkly, Honey Jade, Georgia Katie and Zelly. But if people talking about their random week isn't your thing, you can catch up with myself and BVS and a whole host of other special guests on the TV Jock, where we talk about all things TV and the occasional movie. But if TV and random weeks, again, not your thing, you can catch up with our tabletop sessions where we play Dragonlance and MARP, which is our Lord of the Rings role-playing session. But again, if all that still isn't your thing, there is the wonderful people at Any UK who are all cosplayers, I might add, and you can catch up with Kovikex, Alpha Betty and Little Rascal and see what Comic-Cons are going to, who they're going as, possibly even ask them a question if you're having issues with a cosplay that you're making, or whatever else. But lastly, we're just going to ask Lamia, where can we get a hold of you if there are any questions that we have for you that we didn't necessarily want to put in the YouTube description, well, the YouTube comment section even, which is just down there. So where can we get a hold of you, Lamia, if there are any further questions that we don't necessarily feel comfortable putting on YouTube?
So the best places to get a hold of me are either on Instagram, because my Lamuria is my superhero name, but Tonatzin, Tonatzin, is my name. You can get me at Instagram, so at TONATZIN.M, or you can get me, I have a professional page on Facebook, which is my name, TONATZIN, or if you can't remember, you can always Google Tona, TONA. My last name is Mondragon, MONDRAGON, Mondragon. So Tonatzin, Mondragon, Facebook. You can generally find me on Instagram. And if you send a message to me via Facebook, I try to respond. Sometimes I get super, super behind. I will eventually respond, but I'll be happy to help however I can.
Awesome. Now, don't worry guys if you missed any of those. There hopefully will be links in the description of this video. And you can click on it and go see what Lamia is up to. Please do go support her because she is absolutely awesome and amazing. So go and support her. Tell her that I sent you. Tell her, hey, Jai sent me. Whatever. And then she'll probably say, oh, really? Oh.
No, are you kidding me? Oh my God.